All right, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar in our Q Exchange series. My name is Sarah, and I'm a Program and Events Support Officer here at Q. It's great to have you all with us today. This webinar is part of a series where Q Exchange project teams will share their emerging learning, reflect on their experiences, and in some cases, invite feedback on their work. So each session will spotlight a different project, offering insights into their progress, challenges, and impact of their work. Since this is the first in the series, keep an eye on our events page for future webinars where more teams will be sharing their journeys. And now, without further ado, I'll hand it over to the team to get us started.
Brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. And welcome, everyone. We're really excited as a team to be able to share with you kind of an update really on where we are focusing and thinking about what does it mean for us to develop a systems quality improvement practitioner training, and going through that process and the messiness and the joy of co-designing it so that it's able to meet what we need across the system. Rob, are you able to flick the slides on for me? Brilliant. So this is a kind of snapshot of a small group of the team that are supporting with this with this piece of work. We've had really good engagement from a diverse range of colleagues across both the health and care sector, and this is a selection who are helping us specifically facilitate as part of today's session, but the group is much wider. If we go to the next slide. So hopefully in this session today, what you're going to get is a bit of an overview of where we've got so far around the programme. So what do we mean when we're talking about Systems QI Practitioner? What elements might that programme look like, and the timeline and progress that we're making towards developing that? There will be an opportunity very much for conversation, so a deeper dive into content. So we will be using breakout rooms to share specifically around 3 of the domains, actually what content is coming up through the co-design process, and to actively get feedback to help us refine and define that further. And then Sid is going to end by talking through kind of the next steps and our initial plans as we think about piloting this in action. So what does this mean as we start doing it rather than just designing it in a room? Next slide. So I know that we are going to use Slido throughout at various points, so you might want to use the code and the login just to sign into Slido. I know a number of you have already put it in the chat, but just to kind of sign up for Slido, I would encourage you just to use this opportunity to put on the Slido poll, where are you joining today? Because it will mean that it's working for as we're using it a little bit later on in the presentation. I can already see from the people who have joined that actually there's a real range from across the country, which is brilliant. And we're excited to see some familiar faces, but also some new ones. So people who've already been part of this conversation and are getting an update of where we've got to, and then some new ones who can hopefully help us and inform where we go next. So I can see that people are actively putting in where they're coming and joining us from on the Slido today. So I'm just going to let the participants who are currently typing press send before we click on to the next slide.
Excited to see someone's joined us from Mars, so that's a first. Welcome.
I missed that. So. Curious.
International, no, intergalactic co-design. That's the future.
Slightly more dramatic than Hackney. Brilliant. Do we want to flick on to the next slide, Rob? That would be great. So we're really keen to know, kind of from those of you who are in the room, actually, have you linked in yet with us co-designing SQIP, which is currently the acronym that we're using? A little bit of a mouthful. And how have you heard about this? So just to kind of put in context the feedback that we're going to be getting. So it's really exciting actually to see that there's a lot of you that this is your first opportunity to link in and get involved. And those people who have been part of a co-design group, there's an opportunity for you to step into a different group and see how that aligns with the work that you have been doing in your individual themed group. We're picking 3 of those themes today, just in terms of breakout rooms from a feasibility perspective, but there are future opportunities that will be shared to engage in a more immersive way of critically helping us refine down the content later in the session. Do you want to click on to the next slide, Rob?
Oh, there you go.
Thanks. So just to give context of where this really started and where it came from. So myself, Sid and Rob were kind of having a conversation really about some of the opportunities and challenges, thinking about improvement and equipping people really with the right skills and knowledge to do that in a context where more increasingly we're thinking about improvement that's crossing multiple boundaries, whether that's internally within organizations or externally, thinking more from a perspective of kind of how are we working at a kind of systems level, so often with people across place-based context, but also recognizing when I joined Oxford University Hospitals Trust, you know, the organization was 3 times the size of the previous organization I worked in, and actually trying to link some of those services up was the equivalent of working across kind of where previously I'd been working across regional boundaries, just because of the size and volume where we were trying to support change and improvement in. And really from that kind of coffee and conversation, Q have helped us and given funding to support us kind of bring an idea into reality. So through the Q Exchange, we've been able to gain funding that's helping us do this kind of complex co-design process with colleagues and to test out actually, does the material resonate? Is it working? Before it becomes a format that we're able to share wider. Next slide. So we're keen to create an off-the-shelf product that builds on the foundations and learning that happened through the previously funded Q Exchange project around coaching for improvement and that quality coach program that came out of that. So we're building on that foundation of learning that will result in us having kind of a pack of slides that people can take and use and adapt, some activities and informed kind of structures of tasks that help us take theoretical learning and put it into practice in the classroom and outside, whilst also having a wider selection of materials that help those of us who are thinking from a leadership perspective, where does this fit and how would it be relevant in our context and how would we make this real? The idea is that all of these guidances will be put into a format where people can actively just download and use them as needed. I think there is one more click that shows also what we will be doing is pulling together a handbook even. So similar to where other programs have had kind of this resource pack, what we want is for people to feel like they are leaving equipped. We recognize that practitioner courses are brilliant at kind of getting light bulb moments for people and giving people tangible tools that they can use. But unless you're using them all the time, you still need to have access to that information to help you put it into practice. So the idea is that there will be a fully off-the-shelf product at the end of this that people will be able to download and use, building on that foundation from the Quality Coach Development Programme. If you haven't seen that, I would really encourage you to do so. I'd encourage you to go and have a look and download it. We finished our first cohort of in-person Quality Coach at Oxford yesterday, actually, and it was fantastic to get a sense of how that helped progress for individuals in the room. So we're wanting to develop a similar level of quality and robustness of materials to help local delivery. Rob.
Brilliant, thanks, Jenny. So I got a bit eager in advance to the slides and I was scrolling down in the chat. Just to think about, so one of the things we sort of really wrestled with is who's this aimed at? And the title is currently Systems QI Practitioner. Last time we had one of these events and asked people, that wasn't a hugely popular name, but we've kept with it as a working title, so that might well shift. So don't get upset by its name, but we think it sort of sums up what we're trying to do, but accept, you know, well, you can call it anything, can't you? And we always know that we're never going to please everybody all of the time with a name. So working title, Systems Quality Improvement Practitioner. Who is this aimed at? Basically, it's quite broad, but we hope this just helps frame it. So anyone doing improvement across boundaries. And as Jenny said, that could be organizational boundaries across organizations or, you know, within an organization, you know, ward, liaising and working with theatre or pharmacy and things. So those boundaries are there. People, this course is aimed at people with experience of the issue, the challenge, the problem. So those closest to it, to work on it, who are motivated to improve, maybe have some prior QI knowledge or very little or none, supported by their leaders and organizations to improve and connected. So those sorts, in my mind, those people that are come on a program like this will learn how to do improvement through those practical exercises and taught content and go about doing it and reflecting that our QI world, our NHS world has really changed in recent years. We're now working across boundaries a lot more and taking a bit of a systems view rather than that really traditional linear QI view. That's kind of what we're aiming at. So in a second, I'm going to ask you what you think of this as a sort of outline. Does our outline sort of meet your expectations? Is that what you thought this was being aimed at? So that's my next Slido. So thinking about that outline, that working across boundaries, some not little or no knowledge of QI, etc. Does that broadly match your expectations? Was that a complete surprise or broadly in line? Okay. It's fine if it's not. Okay, that's looking reassuring. And again, in a second, we're going to now have a free text slider just to get your views on what would you change about that definition. So having thought about that definition, especially if it doesn't quite meet what you're expecting, what were you hoping for? What would be different if anything? So I'll bring that Slido up so we can start getting that information in there. Anything different? If you're a bit surprised by what that was saying, or you thought, I really thought it was going to be this, I've completely misunderstood it. Fine, it's really helpful feedback because we know from doing any kind of capability building type experience, getting that frame right so people know what it is, what it does, what it says on the tin. So the term system is used a lot these days and needs to be defined. Absolutely. And that's something we've really sort of thought about. And because for some people, system means healthcare system, ICS. For some people, quality management system. For some people, just in the systems thinking world. Yeah, so some good points there coming up, and it'll be really good to get your views as we go into those breakout rooms on that. And no, it's not just for healthcare, and I think that's been really interesting. We're trying not to be completely NHS focused, and recognizing we now work across various boundaries, local authorities, social services, etc. Yeah, we're getting into the theoretically taught, practically learned bit as we go. I'm very much a advocate that improvement is a practical skill, and rolling up your sleeves and doing it is the best way to learn. Okay, really helpful stuff. So we won't address them all now. What we'll do is take it away and digest. So that poll will stay open and things, and we can get more feedback from you all in the breakout rooms as well. So as mentioned pre-work there, one of the things we're toying with is whether there's an intro day pre the content days or some pre-reading and things. That's all going to be emerging. So if you've got a passion for any of that stuff, do get involved in the creation process. Sid, Jenny, any reflections from you on anything that's coming in there? Or anyone?
The name bit is the trickiest bit, isn't it? Because people are kind of hung up on quality management systems, or like you said, ICSs as a system, or other words being used in a kind of system lens. And that makes it really tricky because all we want is for people to have the knowledge and skills to improve wherever they are, not just locally, but maybe, you know, we talk about micro, meso, macro systems, maybe kind of at the meso system level as well as the microsystem level. And that language means something to some people, but it doesn't to everyone. And that's where we've tried really hard, haven't we, to really come up with a new name, but it just hasn't been catchy or
Hasn't
stuck.
hasn't kind of stuck yet, has it? I think there was a challenge last time we had feedback was because people felt like maybe people don't see themselves as part of the system. So is there a risk, therefore, that they wouldn't see that this training was relevant to them, which is why we're kind of still playing with actually how do we make this as accessible to everyone that it can be, that's kind of interacting or influencing the areas that we need to be having mature conversations about what do we need to improve. More work and conversation, I think, to really refine it down to make it snappy.
Yeah, absolutely. So the systems bit. So we'll take that away. Progress so far. I'll whiz through this. I'll hand over to Sid, and he can sort of add to it as well. So there's our timeline. You can see July last year, successful Q Exchange bid, which has been really helpful in getting this off the ground and starting some of this work, and various meetings and scoping exercises have happened. Really lovely to be working with everyone as well. So actually really good representation. We've worked really hard not just to have NHS representation, although that's probably the predominant group, which was probably inevitable, but that's fine. So if you're from a non-NHS background and you want to get involved, you know, please absolutely do. We had a first feedback there, you can see in October with our first learning outcomes. And again, the name and the use of the word system came up again and again and again. So that's really helpful and interesting. And then between then and now, we've had lots of co-design workshops happening. We've made a lovely link with the Open University, who are real experts in learning design and have done lots of this. And that's been really, really helpful to have their input and insight and really help steer us and pin down who it is we're aiming at, what our learning outcomes are and things. So we learned a lot on there, which has been really beneficial, and we're going to work with them going forward as well. And they're the real leading experts in designing learning programs, especially remote learning programs and things. So that's great to work with them. We're drafting content as we speak, which is a huge and interesting task. I think we're going to end up with about 50 days worth of content the way things are going at the moment, and we will absolutely be editing that down into a more manageable thing. But that's the process, that sort of convergent at the moment before we get to divergent. And then of course we're here today to get your views, and we'll let you know in a minute about the days that we've got planned, Leeds, London and online, where you can get more involved and more immersed in all of this and really help us take it to the next level. Sid, shall I hand over to you for aims and learning outcomes and structure?
Yeah, of course. Afternoon, everyone. So we've been very fortunate. We've been working alongside the Open University, who've been helping us to make sure that we're taking a good quality learning design approach so that we're not just winging it and creating content off the cuff. And so to do that, we've made sure that we've followed that structure as Robert's talked through, developing an aim for the program. You can read that yourself on the left-hand side of the screen there. This won't be final, so this is something that is very likely to evolve as we pilot the program and test it nationally and locally across different providers and systems. And then on the right-hand side, we've got 5 learning outcomes. And this is a reflection of those modules that we've referenced earlier that Jenni spoke about in terms of quality improvement, systems thinking, convening, and leading change and improvement. And using these as a jumping off point so that we're not kind of starting with the content first. And that's been really helpful for us to kind of stop and check, are we creating the program that we want to create? Are we developing content that will help the people who we spoke through earlier in that image of who is a systems practitioner, a systems QI practitioner? And that's been really wonderful, actually. It's been hard sometimes because, you know, we can get excited and go down a certain rabbit hole, and then we have to maybe take a few steps back to rethink what we've developed. And Rob, do you want to move us on to the next slide? And this is what we've developed. So this is really exciting. This is the culmination of the hard work that's taken place over the many, many hours in each of the co-design groups. So here, along the top, we have in bold 5 different titles. These are the titles of what are essentially going to be the different modules or the different areas that someone will experience as they go through this program. It has a linearity to it, and so you would read it from left to right, where the individual on this training course would explore the creating those current conditions and the conditions that are needed to enable improvement across boundaries. The bullet points below are the content that we think at the moment reflects what they need to know to be able to do that well. And then they move on to really understanding the system that they're operating within. And so there's some lovely tools and techniques that will help them to do that. Further on, you can see building a shared purpose, etc., etc. So it follows a chronology. It follows what we think is the general flow of an improvement project or the improvement journey. Now, that isn't linear. We know that there's complexity to this. So we have had some interesting conversations talking about trying to bring linearity to a systems program and the irony of that. But we're quite happy with this. The response so far from our co-designers has been really positive. And then underneath this, you can see that black arrow there is that we would recommend that adopters of this program, obviously we encourage them to adopt the program and to adapt it. So to make sure that it speaks the language of their organization or their provider, but also that it reflects their methodology, perhaps. So you can see in the building a shared purpose, the QI methods, for example, model for improvement. It may be that your organization doesn't use that and doesn't want to. Of course, we would want you to change it to make sure that it does suit your organization. So instead, it may be that you cover lean in this program instead. Beneath it, we would recommend that organizations put in place some form of QI coaching for practitioners on this course. So Charles, you asked in the chat, how does this program differ from the Quality Coach program? Our view is that Quality Coach is more about experienced improvers, people who have maybe gone through a program like this already, building on that knowledge with a focus on the human side of change and coaching and other important skills like that. This program is much more about those doing improvement across boundaries. So the people who are less experienced, and hopefully we're helping them with a blend of technical and adaptive skills and maybe a bit of a light bulb moment to help them to understand complexity and systems thinking. Lots of other opportunities in the program. So it will be a practical program. People on the program encouraged to do a project, to lead a project, and to reflect and to support each other and the other people on the program. And of course, as Jenni's already referenced, it will use a similar model to Quality Coach. There'll be wonderful resources completely free to access, including things like a handbook as well. So I'm really excited by this. I think this is a really positive step for us in sharing where we think the program might go. And of course, this is a webinar where we're asking for your views. So in a moment, we're going to ask you to give us some feedback on this structure. There is a link to it in the chat, so you can find the image as we go through. So Rob, do you want to take us to the next slide? And just a quick fire thing, reflecting on what I very briefly talked us through, how would you rate that proposed structure? From 1 being, Sid, what are you on about? That's terrible. It needs a complete overhaul, through to 7 being, this is pretty good. And actually, I like this quite a lot. Or, of course, somewhere in the middle. Lots of lovely feedback so far. And regardless of what you're saying, we really want to hear how we can strengthen this. So later on, after we come back from the breakout rooms, we're going to talk more about those face-to-face days where we'll really delve deeper into the content, the structure, and get ready for the pilots. And so we really need to know from you what doesn't make sense, what doesn't work, what doesn't connect for you, so that we can build on that and make it a much stronger program. But really nice to see a positive feeling so far. Rob, do you want to move us on to the free text one? So what did you like about it? Again, in the chat, if the image isn't working, no worries. I can do it another way. So the image is in the chat again in another form.
I'm having a little dip in and out of the chat as well. And yeah, there's Claire just saying around, is there still a gap in guidance for those needing to lead ICBs? Yes, probably. And that this isn't what this is aimed at. So it's not gonna solve all of our challenges and issues. And I think you're right. And I know that's something Impact are looking at quite closely, how we support those senior leaders in organizations and systems to do some of this. I think this feels like what we're aiming for here is that practitioner, those sort of doing the work close to the issues and the challenges.
Yeah, we feel like, in terms of the scale of the audience, this program has huge potential. Quality coach, the recommendation is that 5% of the workforce is trained to be a quality coach in an organization or system. When you're thinking about this program, it's much more than that, 5, 10-fold really. And so we're not necessarily focusing just on ICSs. We're thinking about anyone doing improvement anywhere in the health and care system, or even beyond that, which is, I think, really exciting. Lots of lovely comments coming through, Rob.
Great stuff.
Good. Shall we get some further feedback on the next one? I think we're asking what could we make better. So what's missing? And hopefully I can see loads of people on the image on Mural. So in the chat, if you can't view the other one, there's a workaround. The joys of Zoom. You'll be able to click on that and view the structure that I just shared. And the question right now is anything missing? And of course, it's okay to say no. It's also, of course, okay to say yes, lots. Is the leadership content embedded within the 5 pillars? This is the thing about the co-design. We started off with these kind of 4 general themes of leadership, quality improvement, systems thinking, convening. And as we've developed the content, we realized that they may need to kind of fall back into the shadows, and actually instead we may work the content up in a slightly different way. So yes, all of those themes span all of the different structures there. It's more that we've tried to bring the content into a day-by-day play of how the program might be delivered. Is sustainability covered? Yes, it is. Someone saying it depends on how the organization approaches QMS. And that's a really good point. We will be creating a lot of guidance around this. So there'll be that kind of leadership piece is really important to understand how do we take this program and apply it to our organization, or bring it, or the spirit of it, to where we work. And a lot of that will be that kind of practicality. We can only give so much guidance because every organization is different and every context is different. So we'll try as much as we can to help with that. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of support there. What we've found is that we did that with Quality Coach, and that's been wonderful. And since then, we've now developed a community of practice for people who are kind of taking that strategic approach to implementing the program, as well as the people who are operationalizing it and delivering it. And that's been really helpful for us as a kind of sounding board, and to share our own insights and challenges and other things as well.
I just sort of, a lot of the stuff that people say it's misses sort of in there, but we haven't done that deep dive in. So things like RCA and fishbones and framing problems and appreciative inquiry, all those things are sort of currently in the big thing. I think always a challenge with designing any program is what's vital, what to leave in and what to leave out. But when we go to breakouts in a minute, we'll get hopefully a little deeper dive into some of these things. And if you're really keen, come along to one of the days as well, where we will absolutely be all over this. And really pleased that's just come in about being careful about our examples and not being too secondary care centric. Completely hear you, and we were only talking about that the other day. And that's that new reflection of those worlds that we work in. A lot of the examples often we were using quality improvement are quite secondary care centric. So we're really keen to break away from that, and also just break away from all purely NHS healthcare examples as well. So really helpful stuff.
Wonderful. Shall we move on, Rob?
Yeah, because we want to get into breakout rooms.
We do. So very quickly, what would you take out? So was there anything that you think that's not needed for a person who's at the front line trying to improve across boundaries? That person that Rob had framed earlier as who is a systems QI practitioner.
That's it. Let's stop there. Nothing. Let's move on quick.
Great, yeah. I think,
Yeah, I was going to say, lots of you will know if you design any capability programs, the real challenge, there's so much good, useful stuff that you want everybody to know, but balancing that with complete overload and too much theory and keeping it practical is always a careful balancing act, which hopefully we'll get close to getting right, but we won't get perfect.
yeah, behavioral stuff. So we do cover behavioral change, COMBI and the behavioral change wheel, for example, is in the quality coach program. It's in many other kind of similar programs. We've deliberately not included stuff that's in quality coach because we don't want to have too much of an overlap, as then if people progress up the dosing model, so maybe they start off with learning the fundamentals, then onto this practitioner program, then they move on to quality coach or something similar thereafter. If they're seeing all the same stuff again and again and again, it's a bit mundane for them. And actually, it depends on the organization. Does someone need to know behavioral change wheel and the COMBI framework? Perhaps not if they have a coach in place to support them. Perhaps they do, in which case adapt the program and absolutely throw that in. You can download the resources for Quality Coach for free and make the most of them.
Yeah, and I just saw run charts get a mention there. We've opted for run charts at this stage. We've talked a bit about SPC, but again, it's going to be adaptable and adoptable by organizations. So if there's a real need for SPC, go for it. Run chart, we do a bit of that on the quality coach, sometimes dip in and out as you do. What it's getting this to fit for organizations. So that's the nice thing, that it will be, adaptable for what you need. If there's bits you don't want, don't use them. Cool. All right, really helpful stuff. Shall we move on? Oh, a bit too eager.
Yeah, so we're going to jump into breakout rooms now. These are hosted by some of the co-designers, so we're very fortunate to have them join the call today. So thank you all to you for joining us. We're in the convening room. We have Carleen, Lucinda, and Tom, who will be talking through the progress to date in that group. I think we've made wonderful progress, so that'll be a really useful conversation for people interested in how do we bring people together to improve across boundaries. The second group is around systems thinking, and Ro and I will be in that group, and we'll be talking through how can we bring that systems lens to quality improvement. That's one of the main drivers for this program. So that's been a wonderful discussion we've had so far, lots of conversations and lots of progress again. And then in the final group, Rob, I think you're hosting this group with Alistair, is that right? And you're talking through the QI tools and techniques. Some of the stuff that came through in that Slido about Fishbone RCA is actually in that discussion. So if you're really interested in the technical tools of quality improvement, that is the group for you. We're going to try and have this group twice, so it'll be quite rapid fire, and we'll probably have around 8 to 10 minutes in each group, and then we'll come back. So we want you to be able to have a flavor of most of the groups, so 2 of the 3, and the leadership group will have a conversation another time in the face-to-face events. So for now, we're going to move across to breakout rooms. To do that, I think, Joriam, you're going to help. Is that right?
Yeah, folks, just so you know, generally when it comes to those calls, you are beamed into a breakout room, but today is going to be a little bit different. We're using the function of Zoom that lets you self-select your room. So you will hopefully, if all the tech goes all right, you get 3 options in front of your screen, and you click wherever you want to go. And as Sid mentioned, we're going to bring you back in 8 minutes and give you the same options again. So hopefully, if everything goes okay, you explore 2 of the different groups. So don't get too caught up in this first decision. You have another chance. Sarah, maybe we pause the recording right now.
Wonderful discussion. Thank you. So we're just going to round off the session just by, unsurprisingly, giving you an opportunity to contribute further to the program and its design. So really quickly, we have a plan for the program going forward. We are looking to have those immersive day events in February and March. More details on the next slide. Please come if you can. It would be really lovely to get your perspective on that. We're looking to pilot the program from May. We're thinking that NHS Select will host a national pilot of this program online from May to July. So this immersive day will really help us to gear up for that. And then we're looking to have additional pilots. So this program, we want to test it at various different organizations and different levels and different geographies, and we will then develop a polished product for people to use and adapt, and possibly we'll have a community of practice thereafter. So we have a good plan for this, don't worry. It's in safe hands, but we need your help to push it across the line. Rob, do you want to go back to that next slide? Scan this QR code if you want to come along to those all-day events. The SQIP, the name might change, don't get too hung up on that, but please come along. Leeds, it's in the Leonardo Hotel in Leeds, Wednesday, the 26th of February, 10 till 3:34-ish. London, it's in Bloomsbury in the Mary Ward House, similar time, and online as well the week after. So we're hosting a session every single week for 3 weeks. Scan that QR code, you can join us. Next slide, please. And the final question is, do you want to pilot this program? So are you piqued by interest in this? Have you seen the program and thought, yeah, this might work for us? And are you thinking, would like to give it a go, happy to try something that's not quite finessed and polished, bit rough and ready maybe, to give that honest feedback to us to make it as good as it can be? We want maybe kind of 3 other pilot sites apart from NHS Select National Programme. So if you do want to be involved in this, or indeed if you want to send a team on that national pilot hosted by NHS Select, all you need to do is get in touch with Jenni, Rob, myself, or email the qi@nhsselect.org.uk inbox, and you'll be able to have further discussions with us about that. Rob, anything else to add there?
No, please do come along to those in-person days, actually, because there's some really great conversations, breakout rooms that were just a little bit short to get everyone's point. So apologies if we didn't get to you in our group. So some really good thought-provoking stuff. So really excited for this. I think if we can get this sorted, I think it will be absolutely amazing. We'll come up a really good product for people to use and help share across all the great work that we're doing. And I just spotted Lena's just posted a feedback form in the chat. Thank you, Lena. If you could give us a little bit of feedback, just how you felt today that'd be really helpful and help us inform the in-person events and the longer events, and we can really get roll our sleeves up and get into the detail. I think that's just done, isn't it? Dead on 1 o'clock. So thank you, everyone. Completely amazing to have your input. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, and thank you, Jariam, as well, for your support with today's session. Thank you, everyone, for coming along. Hopefully see you in a few weeks in Leeds, London, or online.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Cheers, everyone.